Hello everyone, I'm Augusta Myers. We are here today with Albuquerque City Councilor Ken Sanchez, who has been on the council now for 11 years. You are in your third term, and boy, you have a lot to talk about going on in District 1. And I think right at the top of your list is public safety, am I wrong?
That is correct, and that impacts the entire city, Augusta. Back in 2006, we had 1,098 sworn police officers in Albuquerque. Today that number is less than 850.
Wow.
I think that's the biggest challenge the administration and the council and this community faces. If we are going to have a safe city, we will have a prosperous city. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we face. We are under a settlement agreement with the Department of Justice, and that has been a major challenge. But we are working very closely with the federal monitor, Dr. Ginger, who has been here now for a couple of years. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But at the same time, when you're short that many officers, it's difficult to keep our city safe. And when people call 911, that 911 call should always be a priority call where people aren't waiting 30 minutes to an hour. They should be responded to almost immediately. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge that we face in Albuquerque. I've met with Chief Eden, Mayor Barry. One of the things that we just recently passed is bringing more PSAs. And one of the great things about the PSA program, a lot of these individuals are young members of our community between the ages of 18 and 21, and many of those individuals become police officers. So that is a great recruiting tool.
Sure.
But at the same time, we need to find ways to bring in more officers to make sure that this city is kept safe.
Kind of an apprenticeship program, and they get their toe wet and see if they stick their toe in the water and see if they want to be a police officer.
And one of the other things that we're doing is also because of the officers responding to Priority 1 calls, with these new PSAs, they will be responding to Priority 3 calls, which are burglaries, auto crimes, auto thefts. And right now we are number one in the country, unfortunately, when it comes to auto thefts.
I know, I've heard that bad statistic. It's like not the list we want to be at the top of.
And it's very difficult because you've got police officers that are responding to calls, Priority 3 call, and then they get a Priority 1 call, and they're probably trying to rush through that call to get back to that Priority 1 call. This way those PSAs will be able to respond to the call, take their time, because when somebody's home is broken into, you want to make sure that you give them the time.
Sure.
Because for them, their rights have been violated. And we
absolutely.
must make sure that we also give those individuals the same quality time that a Priority 1 call is given.
Suffice to say, though, you feel like that we are making progress in this area.
We are moving in the right direction, but I think that we are in a crisis situation where we need to move much quicker. That's why I think recruitment is so important, and also trying to recruit local kids and local talent, because these young kids understand the community, they understand the culture, and they make you better officers where they're not looking elsewhere to relocate. They want to stay here in Albuquerque and make Albuquerque a safe city.
And it kind of creates that sense of pride within them to want to give back to the city as an adult.
It does, and I think the other big issue that we are confronting, and we've been in a recession now for a long time, and unlike other cities, we're still struggling through the difficulties of creating more jobs in Albuquerque, and it seems like the population in New Mexico and in Albuquerque is in a decline right now, and that's very unfortunate. So we need to work closely with UNM, CNM, the Albuquerque Public Schools to assure that we have the job force available. So when companies are looking to come to Albuquerque, they'll look at the crime stats and they will be way down. And at the same time, we will have a workforce that can bring these jobs to Albuquerque, because that's the other big challenge that we face.
Sure. No, two definite priorities you listed right off the top. And give me an idea of what District 1, the flavor of District 1. You've got neighborhoods, individual communities that have their own character. Certainly you've been a great proponent of things going on in that district. Tell us a little bit about it.
I love District 1, and I grew up in District 1. Our family has our accounting firm in Council District. It's in Clarissa's district, but basically it's directly across the street. But a lot of great
neighbors.
things. Yeah, we're neighbors. But a lot of great things are happening in District 1. We recently opened up a brand new library, the Patrick J. Baca Unser Library, which is located in Unser and Central. And I've always said how you empower a community is through literacy and through education. And it's important that we find ways to make sure that our kids have the opportunity to attend this regional library. When I was younger growing up, we had Esperanza Library. And I always said that Esperanza Library should have been named Escondido Library, which means the hidden library, because nobody could find it. And I was serving on the county commission at the time when I was told that the Esperanza Library was going to close. And I said that I would, if ever the opportunity came as a member of the Albuquerque City Council, if I ever became a city councilor, that I would fight diligently to make sure that the community got a regional library and not just a pocket library. And it's incredible the number of people that attend that library each and every day. It's open 7 days a week.
It's like the libraries are like community centers. I mean, they draw on all ages from the community. Not just kids learning to read, but people who want to go and use the internet, and that's a beautiful library.
It's amazing, and people were asking me, well, why would you want to build a library in this day and age with technology? I mean, there's 50 computers plus in that library. They've got Wii games for the kids. It's just a tremendous facility where people really are taking advantage, of looking for jobs. You look at the computer lab, people aren't even waiting to get a computer. It's so popular.
Wow, it just goes to show you that libraries, like everything else, evolves with technology. So it's not the library we remember growing up where you go and check out a book. And
right.
Now there's just so much more. So that's great. And I'm
But
sure you're very proud of that
it's been
accomplishment.
a very great resource for the community, and I was really pleased that we were able to name this library after Patrick Baca. He was a
Nice.
city councilor and a county commissioner, served in office for over 20 years. And in that time, as his job as a principal, for kids' birthdays, he would give a book to each and every one of the children that he served as a principal for
Wow.
Trisco Elementary School. So
Wow.
it was a real tribute to Pat and the work he did for the community. And these are the kind of mentors that we need to look up to and our kids need to look up to, because he dedicated his life to public service.
Absolutely. Couldn't have been named for a better person and someone who made such contribution to our community. And it's great that you got to continue that, especially since you said that was something you wanted to do. So let's talk a little bit about economic development on the west side and the plans for a hospital, I guess, and the TID, and how does that all
Well,
work?
that is in the process right now, and
Okay.
people tend to question TIDS because they see it's going to
Right.
benefit developers. Developers approached me, the Wall Group, about a year and a half ago, and asked the question, can we have a TID for the west side? And I was very reluctant to say yes. I said, we'll consider it under one condition and one condition only. And that condition would be that you bring a hospital to Albuquerque's west side. And that's one of my goals for the future for this community, is the community is rapidly growing. The Southwest Mesa, the west side, has over 250,000 people. And when I first got elected to the city council seat, I met with the executives at Presbyterian Hospital. I said, I'd really like to see a hospital built on Albuquerque's west side. They said, Ken, we cannot do it now because right now our priority is Rust Hospital up
Right.
in Rio Rancho.
Rio Rancho.
But we own 35 acres of property on Albuquerque's west side. Well, basically because of the size of that property, it wasn't going to be large enough. So I talked to the developers. Right now, contingent upon this tax incremental development district passing, Presbyterian is willing to exchange the property next to the Coca-Cola plant on Unser and
Okay.
Blue Water, and that property would be located off 116th Street. And what the TID does is you've got to have retail development, which we also need on Albuquerque's west side. We're desperate for more retail development because right now we have that imbalance of a job housing balance where if we go shop, because we live on Albuquerque's west side, we're having to go to Cottonwood, we're having to go to Uptown in those areas to get our shopping done. So this would bring retail development, which is desperately needed on the west side, and the money that is generated from that gross receipts tax,
It'd stay there.
75%, not all of it,
Right.
75% would go back into the infrastructure and pay for the off-ramp it would be at 116th Street, and that would be the entrance to the ER room that they're planning to build and a medical campus. And the good thing is with the developers, in the legislation that I am proposing, the money cannot be spent until the medical facility is built. So we built into the legislation what is called a lockbox. So say that the developers decide to put all this retail up and the hospital backs out, then the money would go back into the city general fund and would not go to pay for the infrastructure. So the money is fronted by the developer, not by the city of Albuquerque. And basically it's generated with a gross receipts tax. And if we do nothing up there, then nothing happens and there are no benefits. But I just believe because of the amount of population on Albuquerque's west side, that's one of the things that I would really like to see built is a major medical facility for the families, not just on Albuquerque's west side and Southwest Mesa, but it would benefit Cañoncito, it would benefit Grants and some of the surrounding areas.
Sure.
And I think it will be a tremendous asset to the community, and at the same time it's going to create high-paying jobs because we will attract more doctors to Albuquerque, nurses, and I think it'll be a real benefit to this entire city.
Sure. And the tax incremental development district. We
Right,
hear TID all the
right, TID,
time,
but
but now
that's
we
the-
know how that,
right.
that means that money is specifically earmarked. If it goes to that, it cannot be used for other things.
That is correct. So, but again, that money would
Contingent.
not be
Right.
spent, and it would be put in a lockbox until the medical facility and the medical campus was under construction. And phase one, they're saying, will be $100 to $160 million, which is creating jobs in Albuquerque.
Wow, something we know we desperately need, right? And what about the baseball fields? I guess they're under construction right now with a completion date in the next 10 months or so?
Right, those should be completed in the next 10 months. I've been working closely with Mayor Berry, Dan Lewis, and the rest of the city councilors. Clarissa Pena has worked very closely with us. We all represent the Albuquerque West Side area, and we know the need for baseball in our community. I've called it the Field of Dreams, and we are very excited about it. Basically, we were approached by several people that were coming to council meetings over the last few years. So when people say they don't want to come down to council meetings because the council does not listen, believe me, we do listen. And we made the decision, and I was working very closely with Councilor Lewis to get these baseball stadiums built.
What is this going to mean to
Well-
not just the West Side, but to Albuquerque?
Well,
It's going to put
basically-
us on the map, right?
Basically, what we are looking at, Dan has a son that plays college baseball. I've got a granddaughter that plays college basketball. And we used to travel all over the country with these clubs. So this will bring people to Albuquerque, and we'll have college recruits coming to our city looking at a lot of our
Nice.
kids, plus kids from across the country that will be playing in the tournaments here. But I did state that I wanted to make sure that this will not just be used for tournaments and money making, but it's got to be utilized if we can get little leagues in there, and that'll be part of phase two. We want to put like a venue where the kids can come and play basketball, volleyball, soccer. I think it's going to be a great sports facility for the entire city.
So not just baseball fields, but it will include some other
Phase
things.
one will be baseball fields. Phase two, we're looking at Little League. Like I said, a basketball venue, like maybe 10, 12 courts where we can bring tournaments to Albuquerque. Volleyball is becoming a big sport, and we cannot forget soccer. Soccer is a rising sport
Right.
throughout the country and right here in our community. My policy analyst, his son plays soccer, and again, they travel. They just got back from Phoenix, so why let the money go someplace else when we can bring those tax dollars and to our community and to our city?
So parents, all of you with kids and club teams, guess what? One less trip you'll have to make if we can keep people here, and then having other parents travel with their children to Albuquerque.
Exactly.
We've got the weather.
I told my daughter, I said, with the money you have spent going to tournaments, and I've gone with them to many of them, I said, you could have paid for a scholarship.
Right.
But again, I mean, that's how they get looked at, these young kids.
Sure.
And these athletes is, you don't see college coaches going to these games anymore. They go to these big tournaments, and
Right.
that's where they recruit all their kids to play college ball.
Yeah, because usually at club level, parents have to invest a little bit of money, so you know those kids are serious about it.
Yeah, it's a big investment, but we're just really excited about that.
Oh, that's neat. That's going to be really neat. And then there's new schools, K through 8, under construction that are going to be open this fall.
That's going to be opening also. It's going to be a little bit longer than this fall, probably the first of next year. And we are very excited about that. The West Side has always faced challenges with overcrowding in their school. Growing up, I went to West Mesa High School. And when I went to high school at West Mesa, we were on a split schedule. And I said when I got elected to office that I would make sure that APS never put kids on a split schedule again. That was an injustice to the students. And that went on for 3 years. We had over 3,000 students at West Mesa High School.
My brother was one of those on a split schedule because it was before Cibola opened.
Right. I mean, we were all going to one school before Cibola
right.
opened, before Volcano Vista. And I think that the Albuquerque public schools have now done a good job in seeing the growth on Albuquerque's west side. But when Cibola was open, that was overcrowded. When Volcano Vista was open, that's overcrowded. But now we've got, Atrisco Heritage, we've got Volcano Vista, we've got Cibola, Rio Rancho. Rio Rancho wasn't built then either.
No.
And it was a real challenge. I mean, all those kids fed into the West Mesa School District.
Wow.
But this school, it's going to be a K through 8. We are very excited about that. And they're saying, APS, once that school is built, that school will also be filled to capacity.
Wow.
So,
It's
I mean,
hard to
APS
keep up with the pace of the growth.
It is, and I've always said the final frontier for growth and development in our great city is Albuquerque's west side. I mean, I support infill projects, but not everybody wants to live like people do in Boston and New York, but I still encourage people to, support infill projects because I think that's the future of our community.
Sure, and it's a mix and a balance. I guess you want some of, right now we're seeing the growth primarily to the west side, but the jobs are still on the east side of the river. And so, that the things that you are doing at the council level to create for job creation with the hospital, the fields, I mean, those are all
Those
things.
are needed because we truly need that housing job balance. And right now it's an imbalance where people that live on the west side are having to travel across town to go to work.
So one of the projects also that you've been working with is the project over at Ladera. I mean, that includes landscaping, signalization for the intersection. I mean, tell us about that.
That is an important project. It is directly across the street from the golf course. And when I was serving on the county commission, this is years back, people were calling me and asking me about landscaping along Ladera. And that's been long, long overdue. But again, you've got to wait in line.
Sure.
With the capital projects in the city of Albuquerque. We've got billions of dollars in needs, and there's only so much money available. And that's every 2 years. It's 130 million or 120 million sounds like a lot of money. But when you're paying for parks, you're paying for solar systems.
Gets eaten up fast.
It goes very quickly. But, I mean, they've waited patiently, and they've been patient with me. And we finally got the landscaping done. We had the neighbors come out, and they were very concerned about the speeds along Ladera. And right there at Sequoia and Ladera, there were several accidents. So now they're putting in a traffic signal there. And hopefully it'll make that area safer. And as you drive by, you've got the beautiful golf course, Ladera Golf Course. And you also have now the great landscaping. But that's taken a little bit of time.
Sure. Well, those projects do take time, and you're right, 120, those capital, that money gets eaten up so quickly.
It really does.
One project can take a big chunk. And you're also working with the transit department for a new park and ride near Coors in Montano, which again, a very busy area on the west side.
That is, and I know right now we've got the ABC to Z plan that's being discussed by the council. And one of the concerns that the residents of that community have is they want to make it a premium transit corridor, which would increase the number of vehicles and the number of buses. I support the increase in the buses along that corridor, but I know the residents are very concerned, especially with the views they have as you're driving up and down Coors. They're fabulous.
Right.
We want to make sure that we don't make it a premium transit corridor today. We can always look at that in the future. But again, we are trying to get people out of their cars and use buses.
Sure.
And I know that the three-letter word art has been one of the most controversial issues that I have dealt with as an elected official. I do support the art project, but as we're going through this construction phase, I know it's been a challenge.
Sure.
We have our accounting business on the West Central corridor, and we've been challenged by it also. A couple months ago, the contractors hit a line. We had no phone service for 4 days. So I can feel the pain that many of the businesses are dealing with the art project.
Sure.
But I just ask them to please have patience, and we will try to work with you to mitigate the challenge that we are facing. And when you hear the businesses are down 30-40%, that's very concerning. Because we were told by Gary Opedal, the Economic Development Director, that there would be $2 million available for loans for businesses to try to assist them in times of trouble. Well, right now there is only $100,000 available in that fund, and that's not enough to assist and help these businesses. I recently worked with Mayor Berry on the art project, and I felt it was important. I had a bill that I introduced to the council that didn't pass, but Mayor Berry, through executive order, with myself, got legislation passed that offered free bus rides to residents of our community to try to go out and solicit and support and hop on a bus to support the local businesses. You could ride after 5 o'clock free, and on weekends the bus rides were free. And I plan to introduce that again until the completion of the art project. So I think it's that important that we as residents, knowing how difficult it is to drive down Central, leave the driving to a bus driver and go out and support their local businesses. I think that it's that important.
Well, and I think as you and I know, Albuquerque has not been a New York or a Chicago or LA where there's a necessity in using public transit. People like their wide open spaces and their pickups and their cars. And so it's an education, it's a shift in understanding how to get around the city. And yet I think those things are great amenities to people to give them choices of how to do that.
I don't think people realize that there are close to 5 million riders annually that use the Central bus route.
There's quite
and
a few.
across the city there are 15 million riders. I mean, that's a lot of ridership. And I was a real skeptic
lot.
when this art project was presented to me, and I had an opportunity to see the art project in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's worked out well. And I went also to Cleveland. And in Cleveland, they converted $250 million of investment into $5.8 billion of economic development just along the corridor
That's good.
in Cleveland. So, I mean, again, plus it's also created 1,000 construction jobs, but at the same time, it's been a real challenge for our local businesses, and that's been a real concern for me.
Well, I think no matter where you go, if you're a city councilor in Cleveland or in Albuquerque, you're always going to be faced with issues of transportation in some facet, you know, and a lot of it results from growth and the imbalance of growth until things start to level out. So that project at Coors and Montano, that's going to be key to your district, as is the Pat Hurley Community Center, Phase 1.
Yes, we are very excited. Phase 1 is now under construction.
All right.
And that community center will be named after the former president of the neighborhood association, Pat Hurley Neighborhood Association, Joan Jones. And that was my first job years ago.
Really?
But it wasn't at that community center. Richard Elwell, who was a teacher and a coach at Rio Grande High School, a basketball coach, he also ran the community center. And that was his second job. I mean, teachers years ago, many of them had second jobs because they weren't making enough money. But Richard was my mentor. And I'm just so pleased to see we've got this new community center going up for the families. And there's been a few shootings at that park over the last few years. And again, it's a great area, a lot of good families, a lot of good people live in the area. And we just feel it's going to be a great asset to the community. And it'll be an environment where our kids will feel safe in the community center.
Sure, and as we've seen, when facilities like that are built to serve the community, you see the crime go down in those areas. So
really
I'm sure
do.
that's mixed in with that, and that's definitely part of the hope. What about the dialysis clinic coming to Central and Unser this fall? That's kind of new.
Now, that's going to be exciting news. When I met with the community, when I first got elected to the city council, we had a meeting with the community. And one of the things that they said they wanted was an educational component. We now have a library. They wanted to see a new park and ride, which we now have, and there's going to be some major improvements there also. And we wanted a medical facility. We've got UNM, they have a medical clinic there, and now the dialysis clinic is planning to locate some medical facilities at that site. So we're very excited about that. And for many people that have to travel miles to go to a dialysis center, for the residents on the west side, again, we need these medical facilities. That's going to be a real asset, because I know people that have gone through dialysis. I had an uncle that passed away a couple of years ago, and he was on dialysis for just maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and he said it was traumatic.
It's taxing,
It's
sure.
very taxing.
And
so
the travel time can be as
when
well.
you're ill,
for
it's
people
got to be a very
yeah.
difficult thing to do.
Good for them. And then the jobs that are created by these things that are
Exactly,
cropping
we'll
up on
create
the
more
west
jobs,
side.
but we weren't sure that was going to happen. It took a little bit of time. It was some hurdles that the developers had to go through, but working with the planning department, we got it done.
Great. Well, that's a feather in your cap for sure, Councilor. What about the first phase of the Sean McQuethy Park scheduled to be under construction this summer? And I understand that one's going to include a playground.
Yes, we're very excited about that. I know that Jerry Worrell, he was the former president and of the Tres Volcanos Neighborhood Association. That's the neighborhood that I grew up in, and I live now today.
Oh, okay. And you still live there?
I live there today. We're looking forward to that being built. Again, anytime you can build parks, gather families together, because that's how you keep your neighborhood safe. It cannot be fully up to our police departments. We as neighbors must watch out for neighbors.
Sure.
We used to talk about the Gladys Kravitz years ago when we were growing up, and we didn't like the nosy neighbor. But those nosy neighbors sometimes protect your home.
Absolutely.
They protect your neighborhood. And working together with these neighbors, and they gather at parks for meetings. They gather, at parks.
Parks are great meeting places.
They're great meeting places.
People walk their dogs by parks. They bring their kids.
We just feel that's going to be important. The more parks in the city we have, the better off our city is. The challenge that we face is anytime we add new parks to our city, part of that budget that goes to the voters every 2 years, it's part of that capital budget. We don't continue to grow the cost to maintain these parks. And that's become a major challenge for the Parks Department to try to maintain the parks when our parks continue to grow, but the budget doesn't continue to grow to help maintain the facilities. It makes it a little more difficult.
That's something that has to be looked at or factored in, I guess, when you're thinking about the creation of that park, because you're right, the maintenance, it's one thing to build it, it's quite another to maintain it. And working with the state legislature and the DOT and the city's Department of Municipal Development for the safety of drivers and pedestrians along the Coors corridor. Coors, we remember when it was a 2-lane road. It was
Right.
very dangerous. It's gotten better, but it's still in need, apparently.
Well, again, the traffic along Coors
Yeah.
is horrendous, and we get calls constantly. City residents do not know that that road is run by the state. And, we try to work with our state legislators. I've worked very closely with Mo Maestas, the state representative, Jacob Candelaria, and I worked very closely together. He's our state senator. And we're trying to make some changes in that area just to assure that the area is safe. One of the problem areas right now, Delaney and Coors, has been problematic. Western, as they're coming onto Coors, there's been some fatalities there. So we're trying to do some redesign work also along those corridors to make sure that when people are driving that they feel safe and are safe. But there has been some fatalities along Coors, and it's just because of the tremendous amount of traffic that we are confronting along that corridor.
You talk a little bit about working with your state senators and the district and the different officials, and much of your job is about collaboration, and not just within the city, but within the other governmental entities and so forth.
Well, it is, and I think we've been challenged more today than ever before, especially with the resources.
Stretching
that
the budgets.
we have available,
Yeah.
that the state has available, and that the county has available. That's how we got the library done. I mean, we worked closely with our state legislators, we worked closely with the county commissioners, and that's how you get big projects done. It's almost impossible to do projects without the help of the state or the county, and with a collaboration of working together, we've gone a long way and we've done a lot of great things. But that's how you get the bigger projects done, is collaboration through the different entities of government.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to tell us what's going on in District 1, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you in another month or so and find out some of the progress on some of these projects, but also some of the other ones that you're working on. Thank you so much, Councilor.
Augusta, it's great to be here. Thank you for doing the interview. It's great to have you here working with these city councilors.
Absolutely.